Hey, how's everyone doing out there? Welcome to Major League A-Holes. I'm Pete.
I'm Ryan. You are in the hole with Major League A-Holes at MajorLeagueAHoles.com and SoxTypeThing.com. We are recording episode 147. The Cubs are 4 games above 500, but they could be 12 games above 500 if they had only not had a closer blow 4 saves already this year. Your White Sox are on pace for their worst season in history.
Are they on pace for the worst baseball season ever?
It's getting close. Yeah, I think they might be.
23
Yeah, I
wins
think they
maybe
actually
or
are,
something.
but
Yeah, like
yeah,
23 wins right now, I think is what
that
they're
would be
on pace
bad.
for. Yeah.
Yeah, a win a week right now, essentially. So my Tigers are keeping their head above 500 for the first time in what seems like forever through most of the first month of the season. So appreciate that. Your Giants are only 2.5 games back in what is turning out to be a really mediocre NL West, which is very odd. We also have fun facts in Major League A-Holes history that we're going to throw into a shit we couldn't make up segment. And then, of course, we have another aesthetics as the merciless onslaught of Nike City Connect uniforms keeps
Ugh,
going.
boy, real
We've got
doozy this
we're gonna
week.
have a total we're gonna have a total of 9 before the All-Star break. We've only covered Philadelphia so far. The Mets have joined the party, so we'll definitely break down those uniforms for sure. So I think we might as well go ahead and jump into the news. My Chicago Cubs are 6-4 since we last joined you. We took a little time off for some personal things. A lot of life happening these days. But the Cubs have, surprisingly done quite well to start this season, despite a lot of really shitty things happening to them from the start. I mean, of course, losing their ace 5 innings into the season is certainly not good. Having Kyle Hendricks be as washed up as he looks, he's got 4 starts. I think he's got a 12 ERA, a whip over 2. He does not look like a major league pitcher anymore. He looked a little better this weekend. 4 innings, 4 earned runs, but that's an improvement over how he's looked previously. That's been brutal. You had Jamison Tyone out, who actually returned this weekend, which is a positive I'll talk about in a bit. But an underrated injury that I don't think I've mentioned on the podcast, at least, is Julian Merriweather from the stalwart of the bullpen has a stress fracture in his upper back. I think it's like a rib bone fractured in his back. Uh, the good news, like I first saw it reported as a shoulder injury, which freaks me out because I think shoulder injuries for pitchers are far more detrimental to a pitcher's career than even an elbow injury at this point. So it's not really like a rotator cuff or anything like that. It's a broken rib, but it's such an unusual injury. You don't know what the recovery time right now. They're saying 2 months, but that's put extra stress on the bullpen. And clearly Adbert Alzolay is not able to pick up the slack because he's already blown 4 saves this season, giving up 4 home runs in those blown saves. That is way too much. It's kind of interesting with him because I feel like he was kind of thrown into the closer's role last year with David Ross, kind of by necessity, and it worked out really well for most of the season last year. He kind of grew into the role and was pretty dominant, and that is not the case now. So I kind of don't know what they're going to do with that moving forward. You could argue Seiya Suzuki has been the early MVP of the Cubs until he pulled another oblique, much like he did last season. I think he pulled his right oblique this year versus his left last year, whatever. He was out 6 weeks last year with this injury. Hopefully it's only 6 weeks this time, but obliques are typically just a tough injury to come back from. You don't really know when it's healed properly, and just takes forever. And it's really unfortunate with Suzuki because he had 18 hits in 15 games. He had 3 home runs. OPS, I had it written down, 141 OPS plus. In that time, he was clearly their best offensive producer. Yet the Cubs are in second place still. They're 2 games behind Milwaukee, who's actually surprisingly in first place. Again, if Alzolay had just been average as a closer, not blowing 4 saves, maybe only blew 2 saves, they'd be 15-7 right now and tied for the lead. So it's kind of amazing what they've done so far. You worry though that they're kind of on borrowed time as they're navigating through all these injuries. It's just more innings for other parts of the bullpen that have do not need any more stress on them as they are already getting, as we saw them collapse in September last year. They're skating by now, but you wonder how long that can last. They've also, it's been a tough schedule. They just got off a West Coast road trip. They came through it with a winning record. You got to appreciate that. So I kind of don't know what to make of this Cubs team. I think it's frustrating. They came off a very frustrating series against Miami this weekend, which they should have easily taken care of, as they're probably the second worst team in Major League Baseball. But I think the one of the real reasons you could point to why the Cubs have 4 games above 500 right now is my Rookie of the Year prediction, Mr. Michael Busch.
Is he any good?
Yeah, he might be a good pickup. I kind of beat Jed Hoyer over the head all offseason for not doing more to supplement the offense. Certainly not to supplement the rotation, but under the radar almost was the trade he made for Michael Busch, and it's sort of an afterthought. And that was at the time I thought of it as a way to kind of gain negotiation leverage against Scott Boras as they were trying to sign Cody Bellinger. It's like, well, we've got this top prospect in baseball now that can play first base for us. If you don't sign for the terms that we want, we'll be okay there, because we also have Pete Crow Armstrong to play in center field, which certainly has not panned out. Fortunately, they did come to very favorable terms for Cody Bellinger, but I kind of didn't think about the impact that Michael Busch could have. And frankly, you and I have been doing a Badass of the Week segment since last year every week, but I don't think we need to do one this week. I think our Badass of the Week has to be Michael Busch.
He his it was like every time I turned on some sort of baseball reporting that week, it seemed like he's done it again, and there'd be like some cut into the Cubs and Michael Busch hitting another home run.
Well, what he has done is he hit 5 home runs in 5 consecutive games. It's actually the 5th time in Cubs history that's happened to tie the record. Christopher Morel did it last year. Sammy Sosa, of course, in 1998. Ryan Sandberg did it, and Hack Wilson did it way back in 1928. Yeah, going way back. But that's quite a list of people to equal there. So Busch has 6 home runs for the season, 11 runs scored, 15 batted in, 1,002 OPS, and a 175 OPS plus. So that's pretty much far more than you could ever ask for out of a rookie first baseman. Of course, I did pick him to be my NL Rookie of the Year, mainly because I thought he's a top prospect, but he had such an advantage over most rookies since he's 26 years old. That's like the as old as you can be and still be considered for a Rookie of the Year consideration. So I can't pat myself on the back too much, because my AL Rookie of the Year pick is Parker Meadows, who currently has a 400 OPS. So that's not working out so well. So before I spout off too much on how brilliant I am, my Nostradamus predictions, got to take that with a grain of salt. But it was a disappointing series against the Marlins that kind of changes the whole outlook on this last 10 days, at least, since our previous episode. Split the series 2-2 against a very inferior team. Another blown save by Adbert Alzolay with another home run. They did salvage 2 games out of it. I think the best news to come out of the weekend is Jameson Taillon's return. He pitched 5 innings, only giving up 1 run. I did not expect him back this quickly, but like I've said, the Cubs' Achilles heel going into this season is going to be their lack of rotation depth, and he's on his way back, and producing already. I think that's a great sign. I've heard Justin Steele is working on coming back shortly. He's doing baseball activities already. I think he's doing a bullpen session this weekend, or he did. So that's a good sign. He could be just a couple weeks away, but the sooner the better for all of that to help both the rotation depth that is severely hurt by the lack of production from Kyle Hendricks. I don't know how much longer they can even keep him in the rotation at his pace. But like I said, it also affects the whole bullpen and how many innings are going towards the bullpen there, and how that, they might be able to skate through for a month or two like that, but those have long term ramifications that could come to bite them in the ass, much like they did last year. The other big story in this Marlins series was the return to Chicago of Tim Anderson. I think
Timmy.
that I think that transitions us over to your White Sox portion of the show.
Yes. TA got the what I like to call the Javy Báez at the rate welcome. Guilt by association, hatred by association is probably a better way to put it. When an ex player from the other side of town rolls into the park, they tend to not get greeted so well. It has nothing to do with, you would think it would just be because Javi's on the Tigers and he's the opposition, or Tim's on the opposing team, the Marlins, but has nothing to do with that. It has to do with Tim Anderson being an ex-White Sox player, and the fans giving it a little bit extra to him, and he was getting heckled pretty good by someone behind the plate, and there I think there's someone who sits back there who's a chronic heckler, because I think it was in the White Sox Cubs series last year that Lewis Roberts had a minor altercation with someone behind the plate that, after he hit the home run, caused him to go
Yeah.
and point at him, similar to what was done to me once way back when, but that's a story for another time. But in this case, Timmy did something he does a lot as of late, from his end of his White Sox career into his Marlins career, and he struck out at the plate. And as he struck out, of course, the crowd erupted as if it was the last out of the inning, and they had won the World Series. Again, this is nothing interesting. This happens the same way on the other side for Javy Báez. Must be a hatred towards team shortstops or something, because they're always a little
There's a
showboated.
shortstop rivalry there, I'd
Yeah,
say.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And as Timmy was walking back to the dugout, it was very clear what he had said. He said, you could read it perfectly on the TV, "Go fuck yourselves, fuck off,"
Yeah.
as he headed
I
back to the
saw I saw
dugout.
fuck y'all. Fuck y'all is one of the
Yeah,
interpretations I saw, but yeah, go fuck yourself, whatever. But
yeah,
clearly the crowd got under his skin in that moment.
yeah,
I think he might have been equally as frustrated. He only had 2 hits in the entire series, but he struck out 4 times. So
yeah. So,
I think that was on Saturday when that incident occurred. Maybe I'm wrong,
yeah,
but
I think you're right. Saturday. I just
so
found it
yeah, clearly.
hilarious.
Yeah, that's rivalry. I mean, it's clearly carried on his post Sox career. That's just going to be his legacy at least on the north side of Chicago, is somebody who's going to get heckled, I guess.
Yeah,
Just the same way that Javi Baez will always be heckled on the south side.
I mean, Javy Baez, even as a Tiger player, if he had come from, just say, San Diego, no one would give two shits about it when he came up
No,
to
of
bat.
course not.
So it's hilarious. But that's enough about ex-White Sox. Let's talk about the most amazing team in baseball right now, the
Ugh.
current 2024 Chicago White Sox, which is hitting new historic lows, including this week when they lost the other evening, and they are the 10th team in MLB history to lose 18 of their first 21 games. It's only happened 10 other
There's
times.
there's only 2 teams worse than that. Have gotten off to worse starts in Major League history. One was my 2003 Detroit Tigers. Or not. Fortunately, you can take some solace in that 3 years later, the Tigers did make it to the World Series. So all is not completely bleak,
Yes.
even
Thank
as
you,
you reach
Smitty.
rock bottom.
Thank you, Smitty.
Yeah, I'm here for you. The other was of course the 1988 Baltimore Orioles, who started the season 0-21. I
Yes.
actually remember that specifically because I
I
thought it was
remember that
hilarious.
too.
I hated Baltimore. I hated Cal Ripken because I thought Alan Trammell was a far superior shortstop to Cal Ripken, but yet he didn't get the recognition. But I thought it was hilarious that the Orioles went 0-21. I think I remember I was at Tiger Stadium and bought a Baltimore Orioles batting helmet which you could do back in the day. Maybe you still can, but I wanted to buy it because I could write 0 and 21 on the white part of the front of the helmet itself. So I remember having that. I remember being essentially, I guess that makes me realize I was an asshole as a 15-year-old, even
Yeah,
way
I mean,
back then, taking delight in the failure of other franchises. So I think it all makes sense to me now. So yeah, you're not alone. You're not the worst yet.
Yeah, we'll see the end of season record. Like I was saying earlier, it's like 21 or 23 game win pace right now, which
I saw 24 and 138.
Oh, is that what it is?
And
24
I know,
yeah.
yeah, and the 2003 Tigers, I think, have the American League record for worst overall record. That was 43 and 119. So you got a ways to go to get up to that pace, actually.
Well, you got a lot of work to do still, though. Yeah. Anyway, moving on to my list of depressing news. The Sox are so bad and have been so bad for so long. I don't know if you heard about this, but AJ Przinsky has officially severed ties with the Chicago White Sox. It was covered heavily on social media through his podcast, Foul Territory, but he basically went to them and essentially was like, it's a lot of talk. There's no production. You say you're developing players, yet no one gets developed. These guys are always injured. You're making no progressions. And I just don't want to be part or tied to an organization that is doing their whole fan base like an injustice. And I'm just done. And you know what?
So he's the one that quit. He didn't get fired. He actually just went to them and quit.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not going to be an ambassador anymore. I'm done. I'm
that was my next question. What did he actually do for the White Sox? What was his role?
Yeah, whatever those, he would be like probably go to like special events and things like that, and
the ambassador. Okay.
Yeah, that kind of role. Show up and wave to the crowd sometimes. Whatever that just goodwill sort of role is. He wasn't like in an advisory role or anything like that. So
okay,
yeah. So he's
got plenty. He still has plenty of jobs. I mean, he's got that Foul Territory podcast, which is probably the biggest baseball podcast there is right now. He's still a commentator for Fox. I think he's calling a game. I think he's calling the White Sox game tonight on Fox Sports 1.
Oh God, it's gonna be unforgiving.
That might be interesting.
Some good TV. Let's get this podcast moving. That could be some really good TV tonight.
I might have to set my DVR right now to figure that to make sure I see that.
In other news, strange. The Sox signed Tommy Pham to a minor league deal. They signed him specifically to a minor league deal, so they didn't have to worry about him passing through waivers because he needed to obviously ramp up in the minors before coming to the pro club. But what is this signing for? Is this for the idea that they could get like a couple good months out of him and just use him as a trade piece? I mean, that's all. I don't understand it from a value add. The Clevenger one makes more sense from being able to rest these younger arms later down the road. So you invest $3 million and get some guy who may be a horrible person, but isn't that horrible on the pitching mound. But the Tommy Pham just, it makes zero sense to me. I mean, is it the idea of us fans being smokescreen, like, oh, they're trying to make moves to improve this team? I mean, it's just stupid. I don't know what Chris Getz is doing in regards to something like that. I also don't know how. I know the Sox generally don't fire managers in the middle of the season that often, but I mean, we're not even in the middle of the season. I don't understand how Grafal has not been removed as manager. It's all talk. Nothing he's talked about has really come to fruition.
You're supposed to be better on defense at, the fast principles.
Oh my God. I mean, it was so bad that there's one piece of good news today. They optioned Lenyn Sosa back to AAA after he fucked up that rundown. And they did bring up today, after five home runs in a row, 5 straight games of home runs in the minor leagues. The men among dicks is back. Danny Mendick is back up with the White
Wow, he's
Sox.
back.
The men among dicks is back. So that's a big announcement for
Okay.
the White Sox.
Hey, back to Tommy Pham real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
First of all, I was surprised about how much coverage that got. That was like one of the lead stories in Major League Baseball nationally. It was oh my god, Tommy Pham is signing with the White Sox. Like I don't understand why that was such a big deal at the time. But the main thing I wanted to bring up, I don't know if you recall this, but he was involved in one of our most favorite controversies back in 2022, where he marched onto the field pregame and slapped Jock Peterson
Oh yeah,
right in the face.
for the fantasy football.
It was apparently a fantasy football league argument that got to the point where he had to be slapped in the face publicly. Peterson was playing for your Giants at that point. That's why it was on our radar. But it was also just a huge story. Like, what on earth is happening here? You and I were talking about, we take our fantasy sports fairly seriously, but I can't imagine getting to the point where I needed to slap somebody in the face over it. Apparently, it was a really high stakes league, which makes sense for millionaires or at least 100,000-aires,
Right.
to be playing in fantasy. So I think it was like a $200,000 league to win it. So I guess you could get really upset about shit like that. But just the idea that Pham has already been on at least this podcast radar for a while now, mainly because of the ridiculousness involved with his fantasy sports. So I'm hoping that doesn't become an issue in the White Sox clubhouse, as you're already dealing with plenty. You don't need that. So maybe in August when drafts are happening and fantasy football is really kicking off, maybe we should keep that on our radar. Just keep an eye out and make sure things don't get out of control over there.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about the White Sox and storylines for the White Sox, and somehow the White Sox managed to every day we don't do a podcast, Smitty. It's almost like they
Yeah.
build up a week's worth of storylines. It's just insane and it's usually not positive. It's all negative. So
Yeah.
kind of sad. One other thing I wanted to bring up specifically regarding the White Sox was much as you and I predicted towards the end of last season, or maybe even been postseason, news had broke that Jerry Reinsdorf has bought a majority of the Stadium Sports Network. And lo and behold, it was announced early part of or midweek last week that as early as October, Stadium Sports Network could be the new home for the White Sox, Bulls, and Hawks. So that is proceeding forward, and they will be leaving NBC Sports Channel.
I think, okay, we talked about stadiums. What's it called? Stadium TV or Stadium Sports Network?
Yeah, Stadium Sports Network.
We talked about that briefly, maybe a year or so ago. Probably got lost in some of the marquee sports, all the other network fiascos going down. But I think NBC Sports in general across the country is just going away. So NBC Sports Chicago is part of that. So if I'm not wrong, but I'm curious though how much you know about Stadium Sports. Is that going to be a cable channel or is that a streaming only channel?
They're currently,
Or is it maybe both?
I think it's going to be both. I mean,
Okay.
Reinsdorf, it's his now. So
Yeah, because he at least started it way back when. I don't know. Is he just took a majority stake in
yeah,
it? Is
he
that
took a
maybe
majority
that's the
stake
news
in
we
it now. Yeah, that's what we talked
okay,
about.
that I remember now, yeah.
I just think it's hilarious because you're going to launch a new sports network with the worst team in baseball,
Hmm.
a poorly run basketball team. The only team that is trending upwards is the Blackhawks. I mean,
Connor Bedard.
like the timing of it just seems very, very poorly planned. But to your point, I was unaware that NBC Sports was essentially going away. So maybe the hand has been forced. But yeah, I don't know. I just think it's fucking hilarious. We're trying to build a new stadium and launch a new sports network with a team that's 3-18. I mean, seriously, folks. Seriously, folks.
Yeah, it's not the best way to promote a new network.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to ask, unless you had more about stadium sports, I wanted to ask, you got back to the ballpark. We had another
Oh,
Pete in the park. This was it 2 weekends ago?
yeah.
Yeah, it must have been. You had a miserable experience with your first attempt to go to a White Sox game, so I'm hoping you had a better experience at your second attempt with Pete at the Park Part
Well,
2.
well, let me tell you, Smitty, the Sox hate their fans. The White Sox
Oh
hate their
no.
fans, and I mean, if it's not proof by the product on the field, it's these experiences they keep providing their fans when they go to the ballpark. The latest, I can't even. I was so fucking pissed. So one of the workarounds is you buy a cheap ticket to go to the White Sox game, right? You buy a 500 level ticket. You get there when the gates open, and they have this wonderful viewing area called the Vizzy View Bar, where it's a first come first serve seat.
Oh, I
So
forgot about this.
Robin and I go ahead and we buy cheap ass upper deck tickets for like $10 each. So we're in the park for $25. We get there. We wanted this sweatshirt they were giving away too, pretty sharp looking sweatshirt. We go there, we get it, we get in. Our only concern was, the White Sox have a historic nature of checking what level you're sitting on, unlike any other ballpark in baseball.
I thought they stopped that
They
last
did.
year. I think. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they did. They do at least at the very beginning when you first arrive. It's your chance to go wherever you want to go. So we bolted in there. We get up. We noticed when we get in there, they have nice new tables inside and everything. We're like, oh, this is pretty
This
sharp.
is the Vizzy. What's it called?
The
The
Vizzy View
Vizzy
Bar,
Lounge.
and
Okay.
it's right along the left field foul pole. You're kind of right inside
Used
the
to be the
foul pole.
Revolution Brewing.
Much better when it was the social lounge or whatever they called it, the Revolution Social Tap Room. That's what it was
Back in the day.
back in the day when they sponsored us too. Fuck those guys. Anyway, we get up there and we bolt outside, and lo and behold, I sent you a picture and I also posted it on social media. There are no seats any longer. That's right,
They took
folks.
out all the bar stools. There's
They
like 20 or 30 bar stools. Best seat in the house. You got a drink rail in front of you. You're sitting in a bar stool. You got the whole field in front of you, and they removed the stools.
they remove the stools. So all you can
Oh
do
my
is go up
god.
there and stand for 9 innings. They
Was there any explanation?
they security looked at me because I lost my fucking mind. I'm like, these motherfuckers, they fucking hate us. First, they made it come to the fucking park on a Wednesday when it fucking snowed and canceled the game 30 minutes
Oh
before first
yes.
pitch, cut off the food, and now they took out the fucking stools. And this guy's like, security dude's looking over at me. I'm like, maybe we just grab these fucking stools, Robin, and fucking pull them outside here and sit.
Oh.
So I calmed down, got some
Calm
beers.
down.
Oh, wait, no, it gets better. I go to get beers. I say, hey, can I get 2 lights? This is the game is, we're not even, we're at the beginning. We're still like an hour and a half before first pitch. They run out of light beer on tap. They run out of light beer on fucking tap. I'm like, just give me 2 fucking Modelo's and call it a fucking day. Because the beer selection
Oh
in
my
there now
god.
is shitty.
Mm-hmm.
It's not good like it used to be. So we get the 2 Modelo's and we're like, well, fuck this. We're not staying up here. So we're like, well, let's go walk
Yeah, what's the
around.
point?
Let's go walk around, check out the food. So we go down to 100. We're walking around. Robin gets the good idea. The fucking Ticketmaster app shows you all the tickets available even after the game starts. So
Oh, so you could sit right in the empty seat.
let's just go pick the seats that aren't empty. And go figure, section 145 had like 2 rows occupied in the entire section. So we just sat in
Yeah.
145, row 12. Beautiful fucking view. $85. They're asking $85 for those tickets. We sat
That's
there.
near your old season tickets
That
area,
is
isn't it?
that
Or
is
sort of
yeah, that is essentially my
third
old
baseline.
my old season tickets. It was a beautiful, beautiful view. Sox lost. I know that's
Yeah.
surprising.
Yeah. Didn't see that coming.
Yeah. Had a Polish with. Delicious. Food still
Of
good.
course.
Beer prices have not
The
gone up.
question That's good.
So
The
that's good.
question is, did you get a campfire milkshake that I've been hearing about? The whole world has been hearing about since opening day. Have you had a campfire milkshake yet?
I have not had the campfire
Oh
milkshake.
my god.
We were in the campfire milkshake zone. You get them at the Vizzy View Bar. They're
Oh.
and they have this new system where you don't go where the campfire milkshake is, so it creates confusion. You go to the bar, so it slows down getting beer because all these families are there ordering these fucking $15 campfire milkshakes because they have to order them at the bar, then go stand in another line to pick up the milkshake. I mean,
All right.
they suck. They really suck.
I've heard they can only serve like 500 milkshakes per game. Like they're limiting them for some reason. Like they don't have
Well,
enough
there's only
marshmallows or
500
graham
people, so everyone
crackers.
can fucking get one.
All right. That's why I was sure you would have had one by now. So,
But I will
I'm
say
crestfallen.
overall, Smitty, when the Tigers come to town, we should go. We'll go get some $2 fucking tickets. Get there right when the gates open, and have our run of the place.
Yeah, well, we won't be going up to the Vizzy Lounge or whatever the fuck it's called if they took out the goddamn bar stools.
Yeah, I'm gonna go up.
I think the last game I went to at Sox, maybe not, but one of the last few games I went to, that's all I did. We went straight up to the Vizzy Sports Bar, sat right on the rail, got there early enough so you could get a seat, which was a problem before, but it was because they were awesome. It was a great place to sit. It's hard. You had to be there early to grab a seat there, and it just eliminated the whole process. It's unreal. I forgot you had sent me that picture.
Yeah. I mean, you get from like, we can cram more people in up here, but you're not gonna have the dedicated group of people unless someone just wants to sit up there and drink the shitty beer selection that they have. I mean, I'd rather be down in the ballpark seats. One note, if you get the Miller, Lite from the tap, it's a Miller Lite or Modelo. It's 24 ounces for $12.75. That is the deal of the day. That is the deal of the day.
A little insider knowledge there. Yeah. Why not get as many ounces as you can to keep more money out of Jerry's pockets?
Well, you just gotta, you want to get as many ounces as you can to tolerate the product on the field. So that's all I got.
All right, yeah, you sound exhausted. I understand.
It's got me fired up with Pete at the park.
Yeah, I forgot we didn't talk about that pre-show. Fortunately, you had all that angst built in. It was easy to do a segment on it. Well, I'm going to transition over to my Detroit Tigers, who are 2 games above 500. It's the first time in at least 5 years, I think, that they've had a record over 500 this late into the season, as they have had an abysmal record in March and April over the last 3 seasons, losing 2/3 of their games over that span. And I've said over and over again how imperative it was for the Tigers to get off to a hot start so they don't continually bury themselves before the season even begins. As they've done that the last 3 years, they've had very good over 500 records after the first month of the season, but it doesn't matter because they're so far out of the race. They can't possibly catch up. So keeping their head above 500 right now is a big step forward as we are approaching late April. So I have hope that they can maintain at least a 500 record as we get into May finally. They had a 5-6 week since we last joined you. They did win 4 out of 7 against the Twins in 2 different series. They struggled against the Texas Rangers, which isn't too surprising as they are indeed the world champions, losing 3 out of 4. They're all tight games and could have gone either way. Unfortunately, the Tigers don't score any runs. They are 22nd in run scoring. But the reason they're above 500 is because they're a top 6 in run prevention. Their bullpen is the best in baseball with a 1.65 ERA. That's a half a run better than second place. I think second is Cleveland, who is off to a tremendous start. But their bullpen is unbelievable. And that's what gives me hope. If the offense can just start to come around, which we're seeing some signs of that, Torkelson starting to hit some lasers as he's struggled early. But if the offense can even be middle of the pack, the Tigers have a really good shot in this division, considering how good their pitching, especially their bullpen, has been. One really troubling thing that hopefully has ended quickly, as quickly as it started, is there was a 4-game span this week where the Tigers committed 9 errors, and
Yikes.
that contributed to several of their losses. So that is something a team that does not score many runs cannot tolerate. That cannot happen. They've played good defense most of the season until that 4-game stretch was just brutal. And it was everybody. It was the infield, it was the outfield, it was Torque. I think Baez only had 1 error, which he's had a really good defensive year, which is very different over the last couple years. His footwork has been really poor and lazy. That has not been the case most of this season, which is refreshing to see. But it didn't stop Tigers fans last weekend, 2 weekends ago, from actually booing Javy Báez as he is off to another terrible start. Worst OPS in baseball, which is consistent with what he's done in his first 2 seasons as a Tiger. Javy did hit a home run a week ago Sunday against the Twins, at which point he had certainly noticed his home crowd booing him. He cupped his ear to the crowd as he was rounding the bases. And it became kind of a big story that, he clearly doesn't appreciate being booed. It's happened. He's actually said it's happened throughout his career. It certainly happens on the south side of Chicago, which is very understandable. But similar situation happened to him when he was in New York, when he was traded to the Mets before he eventually came to the Tigers, where there was incidents where he and Francisco Lindor had certain hand gestures, kind of giving it back to the crowd who was giving it to them, their home crowd. So it has been an issue throughout his career. It doesn't seem to affect him adversely, because from that game where he was booed by his hometown crowd, he has an 853 OPS, which would be the best stretch, probably best week of his Tigers career. He has 2 stolen bases, 4 RBI, that home run I mentioned earlier. He seems to feed off the boos. So I would suggest to Tigers fans, I think it's kind of crummy to be booing your own players, but sometimes it's necessary, and I think it's almost a benefit to Javy. If he hears it from his crowd, it becomes a motivating factor. We've seen that on the south side of Chicago, where he's booed mercilessly. He usually does pretty well. He had the game winning run against the White Sox on opening day after being mercilessly booed. I think it's a kick in the ass that he needs potentially. So he did have a good quote about this I wanted to bring up. He said, "I've been booed pretty much my whole career. I know it's frustrating for the fans, but I think that doesn't really help the team and the organization. I think if we grind together, we should stand up together. We should stay together when we're down." And I really don't have much to argue with there. I think those are probably the right sentiments. I think he wanted to say something about the crowd. The reporters were asking him how he felt about being booed, which he couldn't feel too positive about. But he didn't really scold the fans or go back at the fans or say anything like that. But I think the best part of all this is it's clearly affected his play in a positive way going forward. So I think I need to endorse Tiger fans boo Javy every time up. Maybe it'll become like a rallying cry. Maybe it's an ironic boo, even when he's playing really well. Boo him. He loves it. Maybe that's the new cheer for Javy.
I'll tell you what, when I get up there for my first Tigers game, and we go Tigers games down here this year, I will boo Javy Báez. I will be part of your experiment. I'm willingly able to take on. Hey,
I'm all for it. I might be right there with you.
Before we move off the Tigers, I do have an asshole for you.
Impromptu asshole. I love it.
That's right. Regarding the Tigers. So I was doing some ciphering over here, and so the Tigers were the last undefeated team this year, right? At 5-0, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
correct.
So is it concerning to you? And it probably is. It's probably almost a stupid asshole question, but they were 5-0. They're 12-10 right now, which means they've gone 7-10 since going 5-0. They're 4-7 at home.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The trend is it's surprising to me because you obviously they had the first 3 against the worst team in baseball, so that was a good way to start, and we all kind of agreed we felt like they were going to be 3-0 leaving Chicago, but And they have played some tough teams, so you would think it's going to get better. But is it a little concerning to you at all? Like seeing when they really are playing under 500 since that 5-0 start.
It's definitely concerning. I think that's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up actually, because yeah, they are 4-7 at home, but they're 8-3 on the road,
Right.
which is it's amazing. And again, they already have a winning record against the Twins, who is the prohibitive favorite to win the division. They had a winning record last year against the Twins and every other team in the AL Central. So yes, it's troubling, but it's not as troubling as their typical April starts, and
True.
much of that is only because they got off to that 5-0 start. That's given them the cushion. I'd much rather have them be way better than 7-10 since then. But as long as they're keeping their head above water and beating up on the division as they have, I think they're going to be just fine. Right now, their problem is how good Cleveland has been so far this year. I think they've got like the one of the top 3 records in baseball. I think they're 16-6, maybe.
That is correct.
I don't, you and I didn't see Cleveland as a threat to win the division nearly as much as potentially, or for sure, Minnesota would be. I think we both picked the Tigers to win the division just because I see a lot of holes in the Twins setup.
Which have been
I didn't
exposed.
anticipate, yeah, and they have immediately, but at the same time, we did not anticipate what Cleveland is doing. I think that could be short lived as well because I don't know. I need to look more into what Cleveland is doing. I haven't watched much of their games yet. I just noticed they've gotten off to a hell of a start. So that could be a developing story. But, the Tigers are going to have, 12, 13 games against them as well. And we won the season series last year, and I don't see any reason why they can't do it again. So it is troubling, and it's perplexing why the Tigers are so much better on the road than they are at home. It's been that way for a couple of years. Maybe it's just the ginormous dimensions of Comerica Park do not work for any roster, really. They did move the fences in slightly last year. That was a big story, but it's still 412 to center field instead of 422. It's still ridiculous. There have been several home run balls hit in any other ballpark that have been hit to that straightaway center field that just die at the warning track, unfortunately, already this year. So it is something to pay attention to. I'm kind of holding my breath, as I mentioned earlier, through the end of April, just to see where they're at. If that trend, 7-10 trend continues, they will be below 500 by the end of the month. But fortunately, as you and I are recording this, they do have a 3-0 lead in Tampa Bay right now. So their trend of playing well on the road is continuing, at least at the moment. So that's another reason I'm gonna stay positive for now. But yeah, we might have to revisit your asshole question, maybe as a panic or patience question in a week or two if that trend continues. What I feel at that. I appreciate you throwing in the impromptu asshole question for the week.
There you go. Just wanted to get that one out there. I didn't want that little stat to go by the wayside.
Thank you. That's why it's a good podcast. Keep me on my toes here. I won't let you fall asleep on those stats.
Oh, I know you won't. I know you won't. We moving over to some gigantism now?
I think we should.
All right. Well, I made a bold prediction on our last show, and I had a few extra days, and I thought with the extra days I was going to make it, but I predicted that the next time we were on this podcast that the Giants would be 500. Well, you know how you don't get to 500 when you're 3 games under? By playing 500 baseball during that time frame. Because that leaves you at 3 games under 500. But somehow...
Wait. Let me check the math there.
just do that again.
No, it checks out.
You want me to go slower? So
yes. So you were partly right. They would be 500, but they just played 500 from the moment you said that.
Yes.
Not getting their record back to 500.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anyway,
this is way too much math for this segment.
So the good news though is the NL West has turned into quite a big dud so far this season, and they've somehow, since we were last on, by remaining 3 games under 500 and playing 500 baseball over that time frame, they've gained a game or two to only be 2.5 games out, because over their last 10, the Dodgers are 3-7. The Dodgers,
That's amazing.
much as I predicted that the Dodgers were not going to live up to expectations.
They spent $1.4 billion in the offseason. I'm sure they did not have a 13-11 record planned out for the first 24 games. So that's amazing. I haven't been paying too much attention to the NL West, but I saw you guys were below 500 and didn't realize you could still be this close in the race. I'm impressed.
Yeah. I mean, that whole the division is super tight, which has allowed the Giants to, be in it early and kind of sustain some mediocre to really bad play. And one of the things you brought up to me that you wanted to make sure we talked about was Blake Snell has an 11.57 ERA over his first 3 starts, which is horrendous. I had mentioned,
can't get much worse.
No, I could be Kyle Hendricks, but I did mention last week,
that's worse.
A little bit worse. I did mention last week that I, thought he would slowly start to improve because he didn't have a proper ramp up. So I'm sticking to that.
That makes sense.
I think in another month he'll be back up to form. You got guys though like, Logan Webb, and this Jordan Hicks experiment is been lights out. It's insane how well he's been pitching. So, that's a great storyline. And, the funny thing is some of my reasons to remain optimistic for the Giants was actually done was it a Giants article or newsletter that the Athletic did today on are the Giants.
Oh, it's their daily wind up email that goes out to all their subscribers. They just cover just general stuff throughout Major League Baseball, but they had a whole feature on why to be optimistic if you're a Giants fan. I thought that was timely.
Yeah, one of the other things I was going to talk about today is that Yastrzemski and Soler are not playing that great right now, but I don't think that is, that's not going to be the end result. Again, I kind of did panic or patience last week with them, but I with the Giants, but I think, Yaz had a home run last night. The Giants have just been like really inconsistent because one day they'll score 7 runs and then the next day they'll score 3 runs or 2 runs and then they'll score 9 runs. So the hitting's there. It's just nothing is just consistent right now. So I think once they get some mo going, a little momentum in the right way, once Blake Snell, starts getting his pitching in order, and then, you still have this crazy middle year plus up with Robbie Ray returning. So if they're able to, as I wanted them to, as I sort of predicted as to why they win the division, that they would be within striking distance going into the All-Star break. And then with the additions and whatever else they may or may not do at the All-Star break, I think they have a legitimate shot to win this thing. So, I mean,
I think your best point is about how you're only going to get stronger throughout the year with the potential return of Robbie Ray, which just adding a Cy Young Award winner to your lineup, to your rotation mid-season is like the best trade acquisition you could possibly have. If you're treading water and maintaining, and there's all these deficiencies that you're experiencing now, but you're only 2.5 games out, as soon as you fix those things, you're right there in the mix, and then can jump forward with adding Ray and others. So it's there's no way anyone could have predicted the Dodgers would be this mediocre to start. So the fact that you certainly haven't had a stellar beginning, but you haven't buried yourselves by any means. I think those are really positives to look at going forward.
I'm feeling pretty good, all things considered. It's a stark contrast from for the team I root for in town. So at least I got something going on. That's all I got.
Well, if that's the end of gigantism there, I think we should transition over to some shit we couldn't make up. I think this week it's going to be fun facts or fun moments in Major League A-hole's history, as we can talk about. At least yesterday was April 21st, and I saw on Major League Baseball posted that it was a huge day for Major League Baseball, and that there were 3 no-hitters on April 21st in the last 10, 12 years. It started out with, and they all happen to coincide with this podcast, teams that we cover every single week. The first was back in 2012 with Phil Umber throwing a perfect game in Seattle. That was in the infancy of our blog at the time. I'm sure we posted about that. As one Phil Umber came onto the scene and quickly disappeared there
Yes,
after.
exactly.
But he not only had the no-hitter, he threw a perfect game. I don't remember. I'm sure you had strong thoughts at the time. I don't know if you can recall any of those about Phil over there.
I was shocked that Phil Humber had thrown a perfect game, and I wasn't really surprised that after that, to your point, he just became an afterthought because he wasn't a good pitcher. He was an average pitcher at best, and proved that out over his career. But he had the defense behind him that day, and the right pitches against Seattle. And I don't think Seattle was necessarily very good. I don't remember it. Were they good in 2012?
Better than being perfect gamed, I guess.
It was early in the season too, so
April 21st.
Yeah,
yep,
so
sure was.
So yeah. I mean, I was shocked. It was like it was exciting, but it was weird. It wasn't like when Mark Burley got a perfect game, because Mark Burley was a good pitcher. So you're like, that fucking guy deserves a perfect game for the way he's pitched and the no-hitter that we got to see and things like that. So there's like pitchers that get it, I feel like. And the next guy we're going to talk about is one of them. But like, you feel like they're really good pitchers for at least a period of time, that they earned the right and deserved like to be put in to baseball history like that. But like a Phil Umber perfect game, while it's crazy, it's crazy that's a perfect game too. Not a no-hitter.
A fun thing, but
yeah. But like the fact that he got a perfect game is just blows my mind to this day.
Well, I mean, he was out of baseball just 2 years later.
Yeah,
I mean, his career ended the next season, so it was such an anomaly. But I do remember thinking at the time, like, this makes no sense. Like, I don't remember him before, and we certainly haven't heard much about him since. So, but congratulations to Phil Umber. In 2016, on April 21st, when Jake Arrieta threw his first no-hitter, maybe his second no-hitter. I forget how because he threw one in Los Angeles around that time. Maybe he did that in 2015 before. But yes, on his way to a World Series championship, Jake Arrieta dominated I believe it was the Reds that night in April of 2016. And that didn't stop there with our blog, at least, or at the time, now our podcast or YouTube channel, whatever it is now. As Sean Manaea, then with the Oakland A's, the fucking A's, threw a no-hitter. He eventually went to the Giants, another team we obviously cover here. So
yes,
all three pitchers that the MLB highlighted for having no-hitters on April 21st were all directly involved with this podcast. So I thought that was definitely some shit we couldn't make up. But the date, fun facts, this date in MLA history continued when Cody Bellinger, for the second year on 420, hit a home run. Last year, he hit a home run on 420. It was remarkable in that it was a 420-foot home run, and it was his 4th home run and his 20th hit of the season. So the potheads across the country, pothead baseball fans, just had a field day with that, with all the 420 connections. So, of course, this year, Cody Bellinger does it again, hits another home run on 420. This was unfortunately not a 420-foot home run, and it was, I believe, his 17th hit of the year. It was his 4th home run of the year, but it was only his 17th. So there weren't quite as many numbers lining up to the potheads' delight. But fun facts, this day in MLA history didn't even stop there, as it was pointed out on social media today that this is the 24th anniversary of one of the most brutal brawls you will ever see in baseball. and it happened to be between my Detroit Tigers and your Chicago White Sox.
Yeah.
I
Well,
was
yeah, go ahead.
You remember this more than I do. I was not totally locked in on baseball back in the early 2000s, mainly because the Tigers had been such a shitty organization for 15 better part of 15 years at that point. I was kind of checked out on baseball for a bit, but that certainly changed in the early 2000s. But you may have been watching that game. I'm not sure what your thoughts or your recollections of that game back in 2000.
Yeah. There wasn't just one brawl in the game. There were two brawls in
Oh,
the
okay.
game.
Yeah.
So early in the season, I can't remember who the White Sox hitting coach was at the time, but they kind of, they were kind of like with the Cubs in 2016. A lot of the guys stood very on top of the plate, close to the plate. Obviously, within the rules of baseball, but they were closer to the plate. So, they were obviously susceptible to inside pitching. So people tried to pitch them inside. And I'm giving you this background because by April 21st of that year, the Sox had already been hit 9 times. Not by the Tigers. They already been hit 9 times. And they were going up against that day. You may remember Weaver for the
Jeff Weaver?
Jeff Weaver for the Tigers, who had a reputation of becoming frustrated and hitting people.
I remember him being a dick. Is it the same? Is it Jeff Weaver? I thought he was
Jeff
later
Weaver.
than the 2000s.
No,
but
it's Jeff Weaver. So early in the game, I think it's Konerko gets drilled. It was accidental because it was definitely accidental because I think it loaded the bases and the Sox scored 3 runs. It was definitely, there's no reason he would have done that. But then after the Sox scored a couple runs, I can't remember who he drilled. He drilled another player. It wasn't Thomas, but he drilled someone else, and the Sox are like, well, fuck this. So Jeff Parquet's on the mound, and he goes out there. And Parquet's, the funniest thing about this thing is Parquet's like 5'11". I think he's like super short. Yeah, here it is. 5'11", 170 pounds, and he drills Palmer, your utility
Dean
guy,
Palmer?
or Dean Palmer, third baseman, drills him right in the shoulder, like right in the forearm, like upper, like no doubt. And the funniest thing is there's a description by Paul Konerko. I remember it was like during a Sox Fest or something, or maybe it was Frank Thomas, but they were like, it was like Palmer saw the ball coming at him and just began to charge the mound while the ball was still approaching him. Like there was no doubt he was going
ready.
up to Parquet. And he did the old, I'm going to throw the helmet at Parquet, at the pitcher, to confuse him so I could get a cheap shot in. So bench is clear. They settle that one down.
This was not a tickle fight.
This is not a tickle
mock
fight.
Baseball fights.
But this one was bad, but it's not as bad as in the 9th. Bobby Cowrey's on the mound, and he drills utility dude Shane. You remember Shane Halter in the left elbow, and that was it. That was it. It was a fucking stitches were passed out. Keith Polk, our closer, needed 5 stitches. Magler Ordonez he was on the Sox.
Then with the White Sox.
Yeah, had a cut under his left eye. Ordonez was also out for 5 games because the cameras caught him trying to fend off multiple Tigers with a kick.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The cameras saw that when they had all the evidence. The fallout from that game was I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Oh yeah, 11 players were ejected, 16 players and coaches suspended for a combined 82 games.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
that's serious.
That is some serious shit. I mean, people were there was blood on the field that day.
If you look at the footage, I just saw a quick clip of it this afternoon. I mean, they're chasing each other all around the field. There's punches, like as they're running, sprinting, there's punches being thrown from behind. A couple connections, like to the side of the head, crumpled a few players. It was violent. There was blood on the field. And you don't see, I mean, we see our fair share of, brouhahas these days, but you and I have mocked them for years, calling them tickle fights, because usually it's just a bunch of macho posturing and getting up in each other's chests and not really doing anything. But that is anything but a tickle fight. That was one of the ugliest brawls in history. I just can't. It's just too perfect that it's between the Tigers and White Sox, at least for this podcast. So
I got to give you two more
good memories.
I got two more choice quotes for you.
Oh, nice.
From Paul Konerko. If you had to score the fight, there's no doubt we lost. So Tigers may have lost the game, but they won the fight. And then
even though the Tigers lost the game that day,
they won the brawl. And then Jim Parquet said, "There's nobody that could say the White Sox were close to winning that." The next day, the training room was like The Walking Dead. The Tigers definitely whipped our ass.
It's like a Civil War battlefield.
Yeah, so there you go. There's a couple good quotes. The Tigers may have been shit that season because the Sox went on to win 95 games, but hey, man.
Nice.
You kicked our ass in the fight, so congrats.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, that was a fun trip down memory lane as fun facts, this day in Major League A-hole's history. I couldn't believe those three things coincided in the previous 3 days.
That is wild.
Too perfect. Well, I think that moves us over to our favorite aesthetics. As we continue to chronicle each and every one of the Nike City Connect uniforms that come out. They're coming out on a weekly basis now, as they've announced they will be releasing a total of 9 uniforms before the All-Star break. We saw the Philadelphia Phillies, their very Philly uniforms released last week. This past Friday, the Mets released their NYC, basically an homage to their subway system uniforms. You've got a description over there. I'll describe them quickly. It starts with a black hat with a purple, I believe it's a purple NY, typical Mets logo, but it's in purple. The purple, and it perplexed me at first, but that's the 7 line. It's the train that goes to originally Shea Stadium, but now City Field. It's the 7 line, but it's also known by its purple color on the New York subway map. So I mean, in Chicago, we just have the purple line, we have a red line, we don't have numbers. Of course, it's a tiny system compared to the New York City subway system. So they need colors and numbers to figure out where the fuck you're going there. But so I thought that was kind of strange, just because I don't know I've never been to New York City, believe it or not. I've been around the world, but I have not been to New York City. So I know very little about their subway system. So the purple makes perfect sense once of course, if you live there, it's essentially the purple line. So that made sense. But the weird thing about the hat, at least, it's a black hat. It's got I forget which bridge it is, but New York's known for its bridges. It's got a bridge across the front underneath the logo, which I think looks really dumb. I think they'd be fine without having the bridge on the hat. I think it'd be a perfectly good hat, just a black hat with a purple Mets NY logo on it. So that's one of my gripes about it. The jersey is a dark gray color, kind of a messy background to it, which looks really cool. It's got interesting pinstripes, which I think you've got a description of coming up here in a bit. Black pinstripes on it, which I think look really, really good. But the coolest thing they do is the NYC across the chest in a classic baseball font, but it's also a font found in the subway station there, which is a really cool connection. NYC, I'm surprised we haven't seen this on either of the New York teams. You don't really see that anywhere, but it's just, I mean, that's the acronym for New York City. It's just perfect to see across a baseball jersey chest. I think they did a good job with that. There's a sleeve patch, a purple sleeve patch, which is a homage to the old New York City subway token system. I guess it's a replica design of a token in purple, which I think is really cool. They tied that in. It looks like a baseball patch that you'd see. It doesn't look completely weird or out of place other than it being purple. I think my favorite thing, though, about the uniforms is they chose to go away from the trend of all these City Connect uniforms using dark pants or black pants, which they could have easily done with this color scheme. They stuck with white pants with a big black stripe down the side. And that's what a baseball uniform looks like to me. Dark pants makes no sense. It looks like a softball uniform, which is I'm hoping the Tigers don't do in here in a couple weeks when we get to their City Connect, but I fear they will, as the majority of the City Connects we've seen over the last couple of years have had dark pants. So those are my initial thoughts. Did I describe everything at least before we get into the New York Mets description of all these items?
Yeah, you pretty much nailed it. There's a couple details here that I'm going to be able to provide, which will just blow everyone's mind. And I'll start with
All right.
what you said I had the details to, and that's the pinstriping on the
Oh yeah.
uniform. It is made up of circles and diamonds that make up the New York City subway system. That's what forms the pinstripes on the jersey.
Yeah, I think those are symbols that are seen on on the subway map itself that they just sort of
Right.
repeated into a pattern, into a stripe pattern, which I think is, I mean, it's not necessary, but it's kind of cool.
And then you made note of the token sleeve patch as a nod to our past, taking its cue from the New York subway token. One fare to take you everywhere, and if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. That's exactly
Ah, yes.
written there, so that's a good time. You already
Thank you,
talked
Frank
about the
Sinatra.
purple being the nod to the seven line.
That was my biggest gripe. I'm sure when you saw it, you're probably wondering what the fuck the purple is about. I mean, I think that's most everybody. I think anyone from New York would certainly get that immediately. What their homage is, and that's what these are for. These are not for middle-aged white dudes in the Midwest like you and I. These are for people in the city that they're from, trying to connect with that city, and not maybe an atypical baseball fan. So playing off the purple of the subway system, that seven line there, I think would make perfect sense to any New York City resident.
Yeah, and then above the jersey tag is the world city in purple. Queens is known as the world's borough. In a city that feels like a
I had
world of
no
its
idea.
own, we own the name, the world city.
Okay.
They talk about what you talked about on the hat. It's the Queensboro Bridge that's represented there. That's the bridge.
Does that bother you at all, or are you cool with that, or
No,
that
it
bugs
looks
me for some
annoying.
reason?
I think the hat,
Okay.
if they take the bridge off the hat's pretty dope because it's like the black on
Yeah,
black,
that's what I thought. Just simplify it.
and almost the way the NYC is with the shapes. It almost looks like bridge work in a way. Like
Oh,
and and,
okay.
and
Yeah,
since
that's
and
interesting.
since the N and the Y are intersecting, you could have sold it that way. Do I have to start writing this shit for you, Nike? I can do it better than you can.
We've had a
Then
lot of practice as we've gone
yes.
over like 20 of these already. So in the last couple of years.
And then of course there's always something hidden within the jersey or within the hat or
Oh
whatever.
yes.
So in the inside of the hat is nothing connects New York like a subway system, hidden behind the concrete of the underbill, like the subway under our streets, with its colors twisted on a map. The iconic NYC train lines are now tucked in your mind. What the
Oh my
fuck,
God.
guys?
This is,
Why?
yeah. They were doing pretty well up until that point. There's no reason to put something on the inside of the hat than to have such a ridiculous description of it. That's actually why we're doing these aesthetic segments, because of these ridiculous descriptions they eventually get into. I felt like they were doing a good job for 60% of this. Now that we're getting deeper into it, they're digging way too deep to find symbolism and meaning inside of a goddamn hat.
Yeah, I like you, knowing that the purple matches up with the subway. I guess that's fine. I thought of the Colorado Rockies though, right when I saw
Yeah,
the color scheme, and that kind of bothered me.
that's a problem.
The other thing,
You don't want to be associated with the Colorado Rockies these
no,
days, for sure.
no, they're right there with the White Sox,
Yeah.
but the thing that did make sense, and I know you're a fan of the white pants, but Queens wear gray pants too. I don't understand why you just didn't finish the uniform off in the pants.
That's interesting, because that'd be similar to what your White Sox did with their
Yeah,
Southside uniforms,
uh,
where it's kind of a pattern. There's like a grunge pattern,
yeah,
black, dark gray, and they continued that to the pants. And I could see them doing that with these jerseys too,
yeah.
these
I think it would
uniforms
have looked
too.
sharp. I mean,
I think it could have been cool. It certainly would have been unique. I guess I'm just always going to lean towards white pants for baseball for whatever reason, or at least lighter colored pants than the jersey. I think it looks better, but it wouldn't have been the end of the world for me, at least, if they'd continued that gray color into the pants. But if they had done the black pants, that we saw with the Mariners did such a cool job on their uniforms until they got to the pants. The old Trident logo and everything, and their royal blue and gold colors, and then they've got fucking
Right.
black pants. I don't know. That's the one that really set me off. So now it's kind of a triggering moment now when I see these City Connect uniforms if they do black pants. So it's just that's why I had to bring it up. Just that they didn't do that, I felt like was kind of remarkable at this point.
What are you giving them?
Oh, is that the end of the descriptions?
Oh yeah, that was it. The last
That was a lot.
description. The last description was just the awesome subway in the hat. Great.
Yeah, they ended with a bang right there. I gotta say, there's I'm nitpicking here and there, but I gotta give them 2 middle fingers up. I'm happy with these. I'm not a Mets fan. You and I have made fun of the Mets for years. The New York mess, as we like to call them. They did not make a mess out of these uniforms. I think they're great. I think they'll appeal to the citizens, maybe non-traditional baseball fans of New York City. I think that was the whole point. They did something unique, different. I think it works. I'm going to give them 2 middle fingers up.
I remain a hard sell right now this year on the City
All
Connect
right.
jerseys. So I'm going 1 middle finger up, 1 middle finger down.
Okay.
Though I just don't like the white pants with them. I think it ruins
Oh
it.
wow! So we're opposite ends of the spectrum on that.
Yeah, I mean, most like when teams go on the road, they have gray road pants. I don't understand. I get the black pant thing, like because it looks like, again, like you said, a softball
Slacks.
uniform
Or like they're wearing slacks on a baseball field.
70s Pirates uniform maybe or something. But yeah, that because a lot of times when they've done the black on the pants, like the solid black pants, it just doesn't even make sense. There's like no reason to do it. This, I think they had
Right.
they could have completed a story and they probably couldn't
Oh.
they probably couldn't source the pants with all the fucking problems they had. They probably were supposed to be gray pants, but Nike probably fucked it up somehow.
That's a good point. Yeah, Fanatics probably didn't have enough black pants or gray pants to give them, so they just had to go with whatever was left on the rack, the Fanatics rack there. So it's good. That's as good a theory as any. I think you have sound reasoning. I'm not going to argue with you there. I think that's solid. This is far more time than I thought we'd spend talking about the Mets this year, but that's probably the most positive thing we could say about them going forward.
Yeah.
Well, so it probably won't be next episode, as I don't think we will see the new Motor City Detroit City Connect uniforms released until May 6th. So it might be 2 episodes from now, but of course I am breathlessly awaiting that. Hopefully they don't have some fucking dark pants there, or maybe you'll love them. Maybe it'll work out just fine.
I mean,
you can pick up a pair of dark Motor City Connect pants when you come to Detroit this summer.
Yeah, no, I'd come dressed all in the full Southside ensemble.
Okay, you could do that. I won't stop you.
Cleats too. I'm going to wear cleats in the park.
If the Tigers aren't next week, If the Tigers aren't next week, there might be another City Connect release as they are coming fast and furious.
Fingers crossed.
Throughout this. Yeah, so we might have a different aesthetic segment to do next week. So we will see. Until then, you can find this podcast anywhere you'd like to find a podcast. You can find us on the web at majorleagueaholes.com and sockstypething.com. I find our shop at aesthetics.shop. That's ASSTHETICS.shop. You can find our YouTube channel that is blowing up. I keep talking about this, but it's crazy what's happened this year. We actually lost our YouTube channel. We were kicked off YouTube several years ago. Brought it back finally about 2 years ago. Took us 2 years to build up to 100 subscribers, a meager 100 subscribers. This winter, we finally crested that, I think in February. And since then, we are almost to 200 subscribers in the next 2 months. It took us just over 2 months. I think we're at 198 right now. We may have even gone over the 200 subscriber threshold as we were recording this. So we will see. Thank you to everyone that is subscribing. We're getting a couple thousand views throughout the different segments every episode now. So that's a fun area of growth. We're still doing the podcast, though. You can check us out anywhere you like to find a podcast. So with that, I think we might as well declare this podcast is over. Peace.
Peace.
Word Hole Media.